Perfect. Awesome. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome to the 7-day AI trading challenge. Today is our live kickoff. You're going to basically learn how to research an investment with AI, and then you're going to learn how to actually get AI to place the trades for you, right? So a lot of other things will go and show you how to use AI to research things, but this is going to be a lot deeper, and you're going to actually learn how to actually place trades with AI as well. All right. So here's what we're going to be doing specifically today. So first, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about who I am, about my background and all that kind of stuff. So you know who's talking. Then we're going to talk about the challenge. What is the challenge for this week? And then we're going to do it together live. You guys can follow along with me if you want. If you're on a computer, you guys can follow along with me. If not, this is going to be saved, and we're going to send out the recordings of this to all of you guys. Anyone who's subscribed to this and anyone who's on our mailing list will get this recording sometime either later tonight or tomorrow. So if you want to go over it again, you'll see it on our YouTube. That being said, please follow us on YouTube. Lumi Wealth is the YouTube channel. If you follow us there, you'll actually get the recording pretty much directly after it's done. Okay, so we'll do it together live, but you'll also be able to rewatch this if you need help going over it again. Okay, and then we're gonna also talk about how to keep learning after tonight. I'll tell you about kind of all of our stuff that we have available to you. And then if you stick around to the end, we have a free gift for you as well, and you're gonna get some free stuff. All right, cool. Okay, so quick disclaimer. First of all, everything today is for education. This is not investment advice. I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't think I'm giving you financial advice. Trading obviously involves risk. So if you're going to be doing this with real money, and we do encourage real money, but keep in mind that there's obviously a risk of loss whenever you're trading. And then past results obviously can't guarantee future results. Just because we did extremely well in the past doesn't mean we're going to guarantee be doing well in the future, although it does kind of say something. And then make sure you always do your own research and talk to a professional before doing any kind of crazy investment stuff. All right. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about my story first and foremost. So this is a little bit about me. I started investing when I was quite young. I think pretty much as soon as I turned 18, I started investing. It's like the earliest legal time that you could do it. But then in 2008, basically lost all my life savings. At the time, it wasn't that much money. It was maybe 30 grand, right? But basically lost all of my life savings in 2008 in the crash, right? That's because I didn't really know risk management. I didn't really know what I was doing, right? And it was just really just like a lot of people is trading off emotions and that sort of thing, right? So after 2008, around 2009, 2010, I got my master's in finance at a good school here in Canada called Schulich School of Business. If you guys are Canadian, very good business school, very difficult business school. So I learned a lot through going through my master's in finance. I learned a lot about risk management, and then also very importantly, I learned how to back test stuff, and that was like really one of the biggest things. Back in the day, it used to be like in Excel spreadsheets. You could back test things going back a really long time. But this really helped me a lot later on in life, understanding exactly how to invest properly, what kind of leverage to take, and all that kind of thing. Then a year later, unfortunately, my dad passed away. Definitely a very difficult time in our lives. But this was around the time where I actually had to take over my family's money. We didn't really have that much money back then. We were actually quite kind of broke. I grew up like in the projects in Canada. We were immigrants from Poland, so we never really had much money. But I took over my family's portfolio in about 2010. And after all the stuff I learned about risk management and backtesting and all that stuff, I was able to grow this now into many millions of dollars. We have as a family, I mean, we're approaching the limit where like none of us will ever have to work again, basically. And I don't mean just my mother, which, she's the one who runs the family fund, but I'm talking about that pile of cash is going to be almost so much money that me, my sister, her kids, my kids might never have to work again, right? We're approaching that kind of situation. So to go from 2008 losing all this money to this point, definitely feel very good about that. And I could attribute a lot of that to learning risk management, learning about back testing and all that kind of stuff. Right. So here's a little bit about my background. So I started coding when I was about 10 years old. I got my Master of Finance, as I mentioned. After I finished my Master of Finance, after grad school, I built a software company. A friend of mine, we sold that, made a good amount of money off that software company. They also helped another company go public. They did an IPO, so I learned about how to take companies public back then. I also created a software product in New York. So after that, made actually quite a bit of money building my own company, that sort of thing. Made me enough money to basically travel the world for a bit and landed in New York at a company called Greystone, where we built out a software product there that processed about $3 billion in mortgages by the time that I left. So it was pretty cool to do that. I got to know a bunch of billionaires and things like literally the guy that I worked for, Zach was the son of a billionaire, right? So really got to learn a lot about all that kind of stuff, and met some very interesting people. After that, went to go work at a company called Voyager Digital. I was employee number five there. Basically, it was just a bunch of us in a WeWork. That turned into a $1 billion company, became worth $1 billion on the stock exchange at one point in time. You can check it out, Voyager Digital. And so help build out that company. And then now I'm the CEO of Lumi Wealth. We created LumiBot, which is a very, very popular open source library for trading and investing using AI and software. Very popular library called LumiBot. If you've heard of it, a lot of people on our list have. We also created BotSpot, which is our website. That's like an AI powered website that could do a lot of stuff for you automatically. And we've been teaching algorithmic trading basically since 2019. So we've been doing this for quite some time, and AI has really made it a hell of a lot better. And as I mentioned, also managing a couple million dollars in investments between my family, myself, and other people. All right. Before we really jump into it, here's a book that I think would probably inspire you quite a bit. If you've never heard of Jim Simons, he is probably, or was, he passed away about a year ago. He was, I think you could say, the best hedge fund manager in all of history. They did about 66% a year before fees for 30 years straight. I think they only lost money like once, like 1 month from like 1988 until 1918 or something like that. Like out of 30 years, only like 1 month ever lost money. That means they got through the tech bubble. That means they got through 2008. That means they got through all these different things and like basically never lost money. It made 66% a year. If you do the math on that, like if you type that into a calculator, 1.66 to the power of 30, it's wild. Like the amount of money these guys have made is just absolutely bonkers, right? And that also is why he was one of the richest people on earth before he died, Jim Simons. He was worth about $31 billion before he died. And the way that they did this was they basically pioneered what we're talking about here is AI trading, algorithmic trading. They were the pioneers behind this, right? So basically, they invented or were one of the early people that used computers to actually trade. They were using AI way before it was popular, and were able to make a crazy, crazy, crazy amount of money. Like I said, Jim Simons, before he died, was one of the richest people on earth. Just absolutely amazing. So if you guys want to read a really good book, this is a great book here. It's called The Man Who Solved the Market. If you want something fun to read, it was I think it was a New York Times bestseller and a bunch of other things like that too. Fantastic book to read if you want to learn a little bit more about the whole idea of AI trading or of algorithmic trading. This would be a fantastic book to read. All right. Okay. So let's start with this. A lot of the stuff that I'm showing you here, that I'm going to be showing you in a few minutes, it wasn't possible a year ago. Literally 1 year ago, this is not possible. The amount of change that is happening in the software world is crazy, and finance is no different, right? Like across the board, everything is changing so quickly, and finance is arguably actually one of the fastest things changing because finance, investing, that kind of stuff has been automated for a while now. It's very cutting edge, right? So, for example, Ken Griffin. If you don't know Ken Griffin, he's the one who runs Citadel, right? So, the CEO of Citadel, also one of the world's richest people. He had a talk the other day where they asked him about how he's using AI and all that. And he basically said that now AI is doing PhD level research that used to take his team, like he would hire, like honestly, some of the smartest people on earth. They literally hire Nobel laureates, people who won the Nobel Prize work for Citadel. Really smart people, really, not only are they PhDs, but they're probably PhDs from Harvard, Stanford, that sort of thing. This used to take them 6 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks to research. Like they would take research papers basically. So like all these academics are publishing research papers. He would get his team to look at all these different research papers and try to figure out, is this actually true? Can we actually make money doing this? And it would take him about 6 to 8 weeks with a PhD to do this level of research. And he said that he actually got someone, a software oriented person. I wouldn't even call them software developers anymore, but a software oriented person, and he was actually able to make an AI that can now do this in 2 to 3 hours without a human. Instead of 6 to 8 weeks, it's now taking 2 to 3 hours to do this. It's wild, right? This is coming straight from Ken Griffin. And this is across the board. If you listen to all these leaders at all these big hedge funds, every single one of them are using these types of techniques now in order to make money and beat the markets. So the types of techniques you're learning here is also very similar to what you'd be learning if you're at a Bridgewater or a Citadel or something like that, right? This really wasn't possible a year ago. It was crazy. Okay, so let me show you a live demo of some of the stuff that we're doing here. This can get very big. Like there's a lot of things that we can do, right? But I want to show you a simple demo of like one specific thing. One of my favorite symbols to trade. And if you guys have your own symbols, we could actually do it live today too. But one of my favorite symbols to trade is TQQQ. If you've never heard of it, it's the triple leveraged NASDAQ. It goes up and down a lot. So if the NASDAQ is up 1%, this thing goes up 3%. If it goes down 1%, then this goes down 3%. So it's a leveraged version of the NASDAQ. I really like trading it. We've made quite a bit of money trading this over time. Obviously, everything comes with risks. It's a leveraged instrument, so be careful with this. But it is definitely a really interesting way to make money if you actually know how to trade it well. So this is one of my favorites. Okay? So here's basically the plan. Here's what we're going to walk through today. Okay. I'm going to first of all show you how to install the Claude app, right? Super simple, but let's cover it. Then I'm going to show you how to use it to research like a hedge fund, right? And a lot of people will talk to ChatGPT and that sort of thing. And that's just really not nearly what you could do with like a Claude code. And I'll show you exactly why. Hey, then we're going to give it control of Chrome, my web browser. And then we're going to get it to actually control TradingView and start actually doing PineScript and TradingView related things for me in my browser automatically. Then we're going to connect up a broker and we're actually going to place a trade. Okay. And then I'm also going to show you for good measure, because we do have a website that can do this as well, kind of simplify it for you. We're going to show you how to do this through BotSpot as well. All right. Any questions before we get started? Okay, great. Perfect. So let me switch to the next slide. I'm going to make this smaller here, and we're going to jump into actually getting this stuff done. Cool. Okay, so opening up this website here. So let's start off with number one, install the Claude app. I mean, this is quite simple, but just to make sure that you guys know how to do it, you're going to go to claude.ai. And then here, I'm actually logged into Claude. If you're logged in, there's like a download button down here, right? Or you could just go directly to claude.ai/downloads. So go over to there, and there's a bunch of different things you could download. What I'm telling you guys to download right now is the desktop app, right? So here, this is available for Mac OS. I'm on a Mac, so you can install it that way, right? They also have a terminal version if that's what you guys care about. There's different ways to install it, but we're going to be doing the desktop app and using that. All right. So basically, just click on this button. It's going to download and then install it on your computer. So that hopefully is fairly straightforward. Claude, in this case, it's a DMG file because I'm on a Mac. I'm going to install that, or I would have installed that on my computer. It's already installed. But if you guys were to install it, that's how you'd go about doing it. Okay. And when you install it, you're going to see something like this. This is the Claude desktop app. Okay. If you go up here, you see Claude, right? Now, the first thing that I want to bring to mind is this is where most people start with Claude. Okay. They will start off in the chat, right? Chat and co-work. Okay. That is not what we're going to be doing today. What we're going to be doing today is code. Okay. There's a little switcher here. And this actually looked a little different yesterday. So I don't know. It depends on what version you guys get. But basically, you could do a flip. You want to switch over from chat and you want to switch over to code. And the reason why you want to do this is because code is like 1,000 times more powerful, right? Chat is basically great at asking questions. Code can actually do work for you, right? So it's not just, I want to ask a question and you do whatever. In this case, we want to ask a question. We want to go off and research. We want to like pull together data. We want to build documents for us. We want it to be able to do all that kind of stuff. We could actually get it to control the web browser. We could get it to build little websites for us. There's all these crazy things that we could do with Claude Code. So that's where we want to be getting our stuff done. Okay, so switch over to Claude Code. Okay, so that's number one, install Claude Code. Okay, any questions around that? I hope that's fairly straightforward. Okay, now let's talk about the next step here. Let's talk about how we're going to actually use this to do research like a hedge fund. Okay. So in the Claude app, right, we could get it to do a whole bunch of things, right? But again, because this is not chat, because this is Claude code, it could actually do some pretty crazy stuff, right? So I'm going to leave it on Sonnet because I'm actually running a bit low on my usage. Let me actually see where I'm at with my usage. Yeah, I'm at 82%. That's the only thing I don't like about Claude is like when you used it a couple of months ago, everyone got so much usage, but because it's gotten so popular, they don't give that much usage out anymore, even though I pay like 200 bucks a month. So I'm going to keep it on Sonnet, but you could, if you want to go even further with this, I would go crank it up to Opus or crank it up to Fable. If you're not familiar, Claude has four different AI models, right? Haiku being the dumbest, then smarter is Claude or Sonnet, then smarter than that is Opus, then smarter than that is Fable. So if you want to really go crazy, set it to Fable and then get it to do all this research for you. I'm going to do it with Sonnet because it's faster and because I'm running low on usage and I don't want to run out of usage while I'm on this call. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. So let's do some research. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my microphone. Okay. A lot of people, they'll use something called Whisper Flow. I actually just canceled my subscription to it because this is now built into Claude and built into, and actually, to be honest with you, I don't typically use Claude on a regular basis. I use Codex more so. Here's my Codex, right? This is basically OpenAI's same version. They have all kind of the same features. I think the three main competitors right now are Claude, Codex, and Cursor, right? So any one of those three will work for this, right? Again, you want to be in the coding mode for all three of them. But we're using Claude because that's just the most popular one right now. So we'll use Claude, but you could just as easily do this with Codex. You could just as easily do this with Cursor. And they all now have this microphone button built in. Um, even just a few weeks, it's crazy how fast things change in AI. Even just a few weeks ago, they didn't have this. So you had to use something called Whisper Flow. I've since canceled my subscription, and now I can just click this button and I could talk to it. And if there's any one piece of advice that you get from today, this is probably one of the biggest ones. Use the voice control. Okay. A lot of people will type, they'll type on their phones, they'll type on their computers. There's nothing that will beat voice control because when you speak with your voice, you're going to be speaking something like 2 or 3 times faster. You're going to articulate things more. It's going to get all of your thought processes. So using voice controls is honestly one of the most important things when you're working with AI. Okay. So we're using Claude, we flipped it over to code, and we're going to use voice control. And now I'm going to talk to it. So you're going to hear me talk to it about my investment of the TQQQ. Okay. So let's turn it on and let's go. Okay. So I want you to research TQQQ, which is a symbol that I really like to trade, right? And I want you to analyze it the way that a hedge fund manager would. How would Ray Dalio approach this? How would Bill Ackman approach this? And can you actually get data around this? I want you to pull together data. I want you to put together a research report for me around TQQQ. I want you to look at it the way that like a big hedge fund manager would, like Ken Griffin or Bill Ackman or Ray Dalio, like go through what they would think about this type of investment. How would they approach it? How would they think about this? Go over things like fundamental analysis, macro analysis, get the whole picture, get the latest news as well, right? And then please argue both sides. What is for and what is against? Do you think we should invest in this or not? And give me both sides of the coin and tell me what you think should be the decision as of right now. Should I be buying this or not? And why or why not? And also give me an idea of, because it is a leveraged instrument, I obviously wouldn't want to put all of my life savings into this. That'd be pretty reckless. But maybe give some idea of like maybe what percentage of my portfolio might make sense in something like this. Okay. Right. So there you go. So I spoke to it. you got all this stuff down. Imagine if you had to type this out, this would have taken forever to type out. It's so much easier with voice control, right? So I'm going to hit go, and it's going to go off and do this research for me. And because it is Claude code, and actually, maybe I could tell you about this a little bit right now, is I actually even set this up a little further. You could get like apps and extensions, right? So here, when you go into, where is my, somewhere in here, browse extensions. Yeah, I actually have a bunch installed here, which are not being shown. But yeah, I was able to install there it is. Like I installed a bunch of skills in mine. I installed a bunch of extensions in mine, a bunch of MCP servers. So this thing has more control than any kind of like Claude or ChatGPT could, because it could like access my emails. It could like access, we could give it access to like even paid services like Bloomberg if you want to do that. There's all sorts of things that you can connect it to. So this is not just going to do the regular type of ChatGPT research, but it's actually going to go off and go to websites and view these things and connect to all the different services that we have available. We actually have connections to even BotSpot, which I'll show you how that works later, but it's able to go through all these things and really do much more advanced research than a typical chat GPT would. All right. Because again, we're in that code mode. Okay. All right. So there you go. It's going off. I'll pull together real market data, current news, build out a proper research report. Let me start by loading the research tools that I need. Right. So it's searching the web right now. Right, you can see that I actually searched quite a few things. It's searching the NASDAQ forward PE ratio, which I think is a very smart thing to do. Um, Honestly, this is funny. This is the kind of stuff that like they teach us in like a master's degree, right? Like I have a master's in finance. This is the kind of stuff that they would teach us to do. And every time I ask people about trading, whenever I meet them at, out somewhere, these are the kind of things that no one ever checks, right? The forward PE ratios, that's very important to check, right? Federal Reserve interest rate decision outlook, that is really important, right? It's searching that automatically, right? It's looking at web AI CapEx stuff, all those kind of things that people talk about. Ray Dalio is searching what Ray Dalio's market outlook is. What is Bill Ackman saying? What is Ken Griffin saying? Like situational awareness is another really interesting guy recently. So this is actually like really, really good research, right? So you can actually look in here. I basically just clicked on it. It's when you use Claude normally, you don't really see this, but you can click on browse the web, use the tool. You can actually open that up and you can actually see all the things it's doing. And this is quite thorough. And this is actually, by the way, on Sonnet, the dumber version, right? So if you set this to Fable, it will really, really, really do a good job researching all this stuff for you. It'll cost you some money, but if you're investing $1 million or something, I would just spend the money on Fable. It's going to cost you a couple $100 a month, but very, very much worth it. All right. Again, the only reason why I'm not doing that is because Sauna is going to be faster and because I'm running out of usage because I've been using Claude all day long today. Okay, so we're getting all that research done. Okay, and while that research is going, let me just check up on everyone here. Let's see. Live, perfect, fantastic. Whoop. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. Just checking. River says hi, hello, and right back. Let me know if you guys have any questions or comments while Claude goes through all this stuff. This is some really deep research for Sonnet that's actually very good. Right? Search NVIDIA stock after hours, TQQQ. I guess it makes sense that searching NVIDIA because NVIDIA is such a big part of TQQQ. It is, I mean, the biggest stock on Earth and is a big part of the NASDAQ. So it's going through all that. Okay, there you go. So now that I have strong, timely data set, including something genuinely important that just happened this week, let me load the design skill before building the report. Okay, so not only has it done all this research for us, but it is also putting together a full out report. And let's see what this report looks like. Usually it generates like pretty good looking reports. Let's see what this actually comes out as. Okay, so brand skill, artifact design. Okay, so it's using a skill here. It's great. You could actually add skills to Claude. It's actually pretty easy to add them. You could like literally just ask Claude, can you find skills for this and add it? Or you could literally just do that. But here it's using this artifact design skill, which is great. And let's see what it produces. Okay, there we go. So, okay, I'm just checking up here if you guys have any questions or anything. Cool. So we're going to give it a little bit more time. I'm curious to see. What do you guys think, by the way, about TQQQ? What are your thoughts about the symbol? Has anyone here traded it yet? Do you guys enjoy trading leveraged ETFs in general? What do you guys think about this? I'd love to hear your opinions. Okay. So I'm going to let that keep going because it's going to take a little bit of time. There's the only thing with AI is that you do have to give it a little bit of time. All right. So I'm going to let it do that research. Okay. And we'll come back to it in a second. Okay. Let's jump to number 3 while we wait for the research to complete. Let's talk about how we give Claude control over your Chrome browser. Okay. So this is again one of the big reasons why Claude Code is so valuable. This is something that ChatGPT cannot do. You can get it to actually control your browser for you. Okay. And I'll show you why this is valuable in a second because we'll do this with TradingView and you'll see you can actually literally control TradingView through an AI, right? And you can get it to do some pretty advanced stuff. So let me show you how to get it to control Chrome. Okay. So what you need to do is on the same page, the claude.ai/downloads, or you can just search this in Google. You want to find the Chrome extension, which is right here. Chrome, Claude navigates, click buttons, all that kind of stuff, and works in there. So you want to click on install for Chrome. That's going to take you to this Chrome extension here. I already have it on my computer, but if I were to remove it, it looks something like this, right? So here's a Chrome extension. You want to click add to Chrome, add extension, and there we go. Now you have Claude built into your browser, which for some reason wants me to log in. Okay, did that actually work? Yeah, there's Claude. Okay, so now if I want to use Claude in my browser, I could literally just do that here. Next, okay, next, next, next. There we go. So here's Claude. I can literally talk to it in my browser, which is cool. That's nice, but that's not the main thing that we want to do here. Okay, but we know that it's working and it's all set up. Okay, so I'm going to close this down. I'm going to close this tab. And what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to control it from my browser. Okay, so we have our research report ready. But before I get into the research report, I'm going to talk to Claude and I'm going to tell it to do the next thing on our list, which is control trading view. Okay, so I'm going to get that started. We'll get that moving and then we'll go through our research report. Okay, so let me turn on voice control again. I'm going to hit voice control. I'm going to say, please open up TradingView in my Chrome browser and open up a chart of TQQQ. Okay, there we go. So now we'll have Claude going on that. And then here's the report that I created. This is a pretty damn nice looking report, if I gotta say. So here's a report on TQQQ. It not only was able to do all the research, but holy crap, look at how nice this looks. This is generally very nice looking. Okay, so should you own TQQQ? A hedge fund style read on ProShares Ultra QQQ, what it is and what you're really betting on, how Dalio, Ackman, and Griffin would size it up, and the case against and for buying it. Right, so here it is, weekly range, 20% off its high, $35 billion assets under management, right? Short version, TQQQ is a 3x daily leveraged bet on 7 mega cap tech companies made right. And it's interesting, it says 7 mega cap tech companies because it's really the whole index, which is true. Made right as bond yields hit a 19-year high. The Fed has stopped cutting, and a hedge fund built on the exact same AI thesis just imploded from $45 billion to $10 billion in 3 weeks. The underlying growth story is real. The vehicle and the timing are parts to be careful with. That is a very interesting take. Okay. Okay, what you're actually buying. TQQQ isn't a stock, and it isn't really the NASDAQ times three. It's a fund that resets three exposure every single day. That makes sense, right? Using swaps and futures and charges 0.88% a year to do it. QQQ charges 0.18, so it's interesting. It's more expensive, right? Own literature says it's built for daily or short-term tactical use, not for holding through a market cycle. That makes sense. Okay, and it says the daily reset is the whole story. If NASDAQ goes up by one and down one the next, QQQ ends up down a bit. Okay, so it's kind of just talking about how leverage works, right? And it talks about 2022 already showed you what this looks like. This was absolutely a big drop. This is, I think, 100% I agree with this. Whenever I trade TQQQ, this is why I don't want to hold it because, for example, in 2022, it did drop 82% in a single year, which is crazy, right? So that is definitely something to worry about, right? And it gets into the fundamentals, what's underneath the leverage, strip away the 3x, and really it depends on, it's really just the Magnificent Seven that's in it that control most of it. They run somewhere between 38 to 50% of QQQ's weight. So we're really just investing in NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, and Broadcom. Really, it's basically just like buying those companies, which is very true. NVIDIA alone is roughly 8% of the index, right? And then NASDAQ 100 is trading around a 20 to 25x forward PE, well above its historical average in the low 20s, which is very true. The stock market is getting very expensive lately, right? Though nowhere near 60x the market hit during the dot-com peak. So we're not as bad as the dot-com peak yet, but it is starting to feel expensive. Right, so there's a lot more stuff here. This is actually a very, very good report. I feel like I'm actually learning a lot from here, right? The backdrop behind where we're buying it is the Fed is on hold, not cutting. Rates have sat at this rate, right? Markets have gone from pricing cuts to pricing a chance of a hike. So interest rates might go up, which would hurt this a lot. And by the way, it's what happened in 2022. So if that is a real risk. Long-term borrowing costs just hit a 19-year high, right? Chips have been selling off all month, independent of NVIDIA's print. Geopolitics sits directly on the trade. Ken Griffin flagged that a Chinese move on Taiwan could cut US GDP by 8% within 6 months, purely by cutting off the world's dominant chip foundry, which is also a very big risk, right? So this is all very good. So there's a lot of risks around this, right? How would all the hedge fund managers look at this? This is a very, very detailed report. I mean, this is actually excellent. Honestly, this is the type of work that, like, when I was doing my master's degree, I would have spent an entire week putting this together. Like, this is crazy. This is a very well researched, very detailed report. I actually agree a lot of the stuff. So, bull case is saying the fundamentals are real, right? The pullback already happened, right? No recession signal yet. Long-term math has worked before. Over the last 10 years, TQQQ has compounded around 40% annualized versus 21% for QQQ, which is one of the reasons why I like it, right? It's very risky, but it has performed extremely well. 40% annual return just for holding it. If you trade it, you could potentially make even more than that. And then capital efficiency. Okay. And then bear case, you're leveraging an already stretched, already concentrated bet. That is absolutely the case. Rates are actively fighting the trade, so interest rates are going up. The failure mode isn't hypothetical, it's 3 weeks old. A fund built on this identical thesis just lost 78% of its assets. That was Ashton Brenner's hedge fund. That's kind of crazy. Volatility decay works against you. 2022 is a precedent that we could definitely lose 82% holding this thing. So this is a very good breakdown. I think this is actually great. My honest read. Okay. So treat this as one analytical opinion. Da da da. Stretch multiple, blah blah. More importantly, the question, should I own, is different, bullish, right? If the plan is to buy it and check back in a year, the math in this report is arguing against that, not for it. So it's generally kind of telling me don't buy TQQQ right now. Okay, that's interesting. So that's a good report. Very interesting take on all this. Very detailed. It's actually excellent. And of course we can keep talking back to it and I'm assuming you guys know how to use ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. You could ask it questions and researching it and dig deeper. But I think this is a pretty damn good report, if I say so myself, right? And it kind of goes into, okay, how much of my portfolio and all kind of stuff. This is excellent, excellent reporting. Okay. Cool. So we have that idea, and to be honest with you, I agree with this. I would not personally like this is my own money. Again, not financial advice. I wouldn't hold this. This is not something I would hold forever. This is something that I want to trade, right? Because it is leveraged, because it does have these big drops of 82% in 2022. It's not something I want to be holding on to. But trading it sounds very interesting, right? So okay, so that's great. So let's talk about trading it. Okay. So what I already did was I told Claude to open up TradingView for TQQQ in my Chrome browser. So let's see if it did that. So I'm going to go over here, and where is it? Eh, I do not see this in my Chrome browser. Where is it? I don't want you to open it in your browser. I want you to open it in Chrome. Yeah, this is something that Claude does sometimes. It has its own built-in browser. So it actually opened up TradingView in its own browser, and you can see that here, right? This is TradingView. But this is not very helpful. This is not what I would want to look at. Um, so we're gonna let this thing actually open it up in Chrome. Um, okay, and let's see if it actually had any kind of issues. Has Claude and Chrome, the tool that touches your real Chrome, locked down to upward cron job. Okay. Oh, it's actually listening to my own advice I gave it a while ago. So we're going to get to actually use Real Chrome. So let's take a look at this. You can see it opened up this browser tab here, and there it is. Okay, so it automatically opened up TradingView for me. Fantastic. Very cool. All right. So I could talk to it. Now I could talk to my web browser. All right. This is pretty damn cool. Okay. So one thing that I really like doing for TQQQ, and if we kept going through the research, you'd see this. But one of my favorite things to do with trading it is I like trading it based on the 200-day moving average, right? If we've actually done a lot of back tests around this, we've done a lot of research around this, and if you take any of our courses, you'll learn how to do this kind of back testing. We've extensively gone through this, and the 200-day moving average is something that seems to be kind of like almost like a magic number for TQQQ. So I would want to see that. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the microphone, and I'm going to tell this thing to do that for me. So again, inside of Chrome, what I want you to do is put TQQQ in the advanced charts. And then I want you to basically add like an indicator, like my own custom indicator around the 200-day moving average, right? So I want you to make it a chart pretty much as long as you can go, as far back as you can go. And then I want you to basically write Pine script, or just to make a custom indicator around the 200-day moving average. And I want it to like look nice. I want it to be like when it's above the 200-day moving average, I want it to be green to say that this is where I want to trade, and have like an alert around it and like a marker on the graph. And when it's below the 200-day moving average, I want it to be red and have like some sort of marker saying this is where we should sell, and have an alert around that as well. Okay, so there you go. So I told Claude to do this, and then we could watch it basically get all this stuff done. All right. Let me check in on you guys. So there's a question here. Are you actively using BotSpot to live trade profitably and consistently right now, or are you using it mainly as a research assistant? I actually trade a lot with BotSpot. I could show you what we do with BotSpot. I could show you some of my things that we have in there. And yeah, we have actually been doing pretty well with some of our strategies in BotSpot. I have things that are running basically on a regular basis, right? That's like automatically trading for me. I have a lot of things like that in BotSpot trade for me automatically. And and I do actually do a lot of research with it. We've recently added in a feature where we could like really do graphing very well, kind of like how TradingView does it. We want to actually make it so that BotSpot can have TradingView level graphs, but you could just like talk to them, right? So the way I'm doing graphing here, this is the same way that you can kind of do it through BotSpot, right? So let's take a look at what the AI is doing. Okay, so you see the AI, open this up. This is actually one that I did recently. It actually just loaded one that I did. I actually did this yesterday because I recorded a YouTube video around it. I wanted to show you guys actually, show Claude actually doing it though. But I mean, this is basically what Claude was able to do for me. Right? I asked it, make me a graph of TQQQ and then put together this stuff. And then you can see here, um, it's red when it's below the 200-day moving average, both on the line and on the graph itself. And it has like indicators saying this is like when it's a sell, right? And then when it's going up, we have the green indicators. And Claude was actually able to do this automatically for me. Um, yeah, so it's actually saying that's interesting. There's already an indicator called 200 MA trend 200. Um, I feel like we should remove this. Okay. I'm just going to tell it. I removed that indicator. Can you please just make it again? Because I'm trying to show people how you were able to do that. So can you just create that indicator again? I removed it manually and just show people how you could actually do this. Okay, because I want to show you guys like how this thing actually works, so you can actually see it functioning, rather than just seeing one that already worked. I'm gonna delete it again. Where did that go? Delete. Okay. And you could basically see this thing. So normally, if you're using AI, you could actually go into TradingView and it will teach you how to do this. It'll say like, this is how you do it. You have to use Pine script, and then you'll like take a screenshot, and then you like give that to ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT will say, well, copy and paste this text, and then you paste it over to the browser. And it's this really annoying back and forth that you have to do. Whereas if you give Claude or Codex or Cursor or any one of these things actual browser control, then it could actually just do this stuff for you, right? So instead of me having to take a screenshot and giving this to ChatGPT or whatever, it could just like figure it out. Like, look, you could actually see where the cursor is. You can see that's where it is. It like clicked on this automatically, right? It opens this thing up with code for Pine script, if you guys are familiar with TradingView, and it's able to actually do it itself, right? It figured out where is it on the screen. It clicked there. It's now seeing the code. Let's see if it actually makes a new one because that's kind of what I told it to do. But here's basically the code for that overlay that you saw earlier, right? You can see my indicators, or you can see the actual TQQQ, right? And then here's like creating this indicator. Now imagine, and I'd like to actually know what you guys trade, because you could pretty much do this with anything, right? You could get it to do, say if you trade Fibonacci's, you could do that. Let's say if you trade MACD, you can get it to do that. Let's say if you wanted to create your own indicators. Actually, funny enough, is you could create indicators on TradingView. You could even sell these things. Like people actually pay a lot of money for some of these indicators. So you could just have AI completely make this for you. It's pretty damn incredible. You can actually watch this thing. You can see where the cursor is. You can see what it's clicking on. You'll see that actually like, we'll see what it does here. Let's see what it's working on. The full source is already saved. This is the exact indicator I accidentally removed. Let me scroll. Exact save script. Okay, cool. So I don't want to waste you guys' time, but basically, if we were to start from scratch, which next time I do this, I'm going to just delete it from the beginning. Basically, it was able to make this code. It was able to iterate on it. It like basically creates it, checks is it working properly, and then edits it, and then checks is it working properly, and then it'll go back and forth, and it'll be able to do that until we have a result like this, which this is exactly the type of thing that I want to be looking at when I am trading TQQQ. This is a chart for me, and I'm looking at it. It looks green right now, so in my mind, this feels like a good thing to actually trade right now, according to my usual trading habits. Um, you guys might disagree, and Claude, its own research disagreed a bit. And to be honest with you, it's actually getting kind of close to the 200-day moving average. So, there's something to be said for that. But either way, you guys can do this with anything. Think about whatever indicators you guys have, Fibonacci's, what crazy stuff do you guys want to put on the graph? You guys can do all of that through TradingView and browser control, basically. All right. Cool. So very cool. We have Claude controlling TradingView. You can make it build any kind of Pine script for you. You can make it build alerts for you. So it's actually, look at this, it's creating an alert for me right now. So it's actually going to tell me when it's above the 200-day moving average or when it's below. I'm not clicking on this. This is Claude clicking on stuff for me right now. You can see it clicked on interval 1 day, trigger once only. It actually picked all the stuff. There's an expiration it added, right? It did all this stuff for me automatically. I would probably change this a little bit, but I don't know if you guys have ever had to set up alerts in TradingView. They're pretty damn complicated. You have to like figure out which thing you're doing, and then you have to like, does the indicator have this? It actually gets quite complicated. So to get Claude to do this automatically is really, really, really helpful, right? Because all you do is just tell it, figure this out. It'll just go off and just keep doing it until it figures it out, right? So here it's saying once per bar close, so it actually changed that, right? The interval is 1 day. It set an expiration date for me. It's even set a message. Okay, so I guess now it's going to change the expiration. Let's see what it does. I would basically want this open-ended personally. Let's see if it picks that. Either way, I'm not touching this stuff. It's doing it all automatically for me. We're going to stop here because I don't want to upgrade to the premium version, but I think you guys get the point, right? You get to link your Claude to your browser, and now it can control your browser. It can do all sorts of crazy stuff for you. Okay. So that's for TradingView. Okay. I'm going to stop this now because I don't want to run out of credits while we're going through this. But you can see how you can now just literally with your voice, like I mean, talk literally, like not even typing. You could talk to TradingView and it can control that for you. That alone is pretty damn cool, right? It could build your own kind of custom indicators. It could build your own alerts. It could do all that kind of stuff, right? But then that's just one website, right? Like imagine you could do this with a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Like let's say do an analysis using my Chrome browser through some other websites like FinViz or some other websites I think might be useful to actually figure out um, is this a good time to trade it based on options or other things like that? Like look at some websites and load that in my Chrome browser and tell me what you think about currently what are other websites saying around TQQQ. Load it up in my Chrome browser and actually go to the websites and figure this out. I think like FinViz is maybe one good one. There's probably a few other ones that could be pretty good for us to use here. So please do that in my Chrome browser now. Okay, so this is an example of like you could do other things, right? Like FinViz is like a pretty popular website. If you guys have never used it before, you can do a lot of really cool stuff through it. There's like tip ranks where you can get a lot of cool stuff. I have some clients doing that. Bar charts, like all these different trading websites, like a TradingView, can be done automatically with Chrome, and you could like literally get it to go in there, click on the buttons for you. Like I don't know about you guys, but for me. I don't like using the browser. I don't like clicking on stuff. Who likes to figure out how a website works, right? Like that's such a pain, you know? You can actually just get AI to just do that for you, right? So in this case, that's what I'm using Chrome for or using Claude for, right? So there we go. So you can see how that is happening. Okay. So let that go. Um, cool. Any questions around any of that? Showing Claude with browser control. I think that's quite a powerful thing. Okay, let me read this here. So Bruce is asking, you're saying, hello, I'm new to AI. Will you share some of the prompts that you have created for us to use with our own Claude? Yeah, let me share you some of the stuff. Let me share you some of them right now. So here's my first prompt that I used. Oh, it's too long. You know what? What I'll do, if you guys are on our mailing list, which I hope you are, if you're not, go to botspot.trade. Go to education and then go to challenges. This will get you on our list. A lot of people would have joined us through here, right? So BotSpot.trade challenges. If you're on our mailing list, we'll be sending this out to everybody. We'll send out basically like the recording of this conversation. So you'll be able to rewatch this, and then we'll also send over like the prompts that I actually used during this session. Okay, so I'll make sure I do that for you, Bruce. All right, let me know if that helps. Okay. All right. And then, so we see here it's opening up a few websites. Here's FinViz. There you go. So Claude opened up FinViz for me automatically, right? Great website, by the way, has a lot of analysis on all this stuff, right? So I could actually use this website, right? Like literally use the website to actually do this stuff. Here's bar chart. Why is it not clicking? My computer is going slow right now. There we go. So here's Market Chameleon is something that I found. I've never even heard of this website. Very interesting. Implied volatility is giving me some sort of breakdown on all this. This is pretty crazy. This is actually much more in-depth research than I would have expected. Then we have FinViz, which has a bunch of other stuff. Okay, cool. So Claude found some interesting stuff here. Bar chart, there we go. Overall average 32% buy. Very interesting. We could even get it to go through things like Blossom, which is like a social network around the stuff. So like just imagine like all the different websites, all the different finance websites, all the different analysis things, like all of it now can be controlled by Chrome through the or by Chrome and Claude through the browser. And you can get all this stuff here. Like look at this. All like there's the composite indicators, right? Average hold, right? 50-day volume, 50% buy, right? So it's like we get that breakdown, we get all the different ones, and let's see Market Chameleon. So it's still going through all of them. Right. So you can see this is like way better than any kind of analysis that like even like I said a year ago, I like PhD students, like I actually employ PhD students at our companies. And I mean, this is better research than they would do. You know what I mean? Like a very well researched document is going to all these different websites, it's finding all these different things, different opinions, and it could actually really help me figure this out. And it could control TradingView and it could do all that kind of stuff. That's pretty damn cool. Right? So some very thorough research here. Okay. So yeah, no problem, Bruce. Yeah. So we'll let it do a little bit more here. Fear and greed index. Look, this is CNN. So CNN is at neutral, right? So it's able to bring in all these different things. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm actually learning a lot just going through this. This is pretty nutso. Fear and greed index, we're pretty close to greed. I'm actually kind of surprised that we're at neutral. But all right, some very good research here. I'll let it keep doing some research. But in the meantime, let's talk about the next thing now, right? So we have now been able to let's talk about what we did, right? We installed Claude, right? We were able to get it to do put together a whole research report for us, which is this pretty extensive research report here on one of the symbols I like to trade. And keep in mind, what I'd like to see you guys do, and this is a challenge, right? This is our 7-day challenge. Your challenge is going to be to do this for your own symbols, right? What is a company that you guys like? NVIDIA, Tesla, Palantir, whatever, right? Or maybe get it to like search for you. Find a symbol that you like and do this kind of research for it, right? You could also connect it to TradingView. You can connect it to all your favorite websites for this kind of stuff or find new ones and do a really thorough analysis of anything that you want to trade, right? That's going to be your challenge here to do that analysis. Then the next step of your challenge, and I'm going to show you this right now, is let's get AI to actually trade this thing for me. Okay. So let's do that. Okay. So I'm going to now connect a broker. Okay. So, how do you connect a broker to Claude? Let's talk about this. Okay. So, first of all, there's a couple of brokers that allow this natively right now. So, if you use Robinhood, they have something called an MCP server, which you can connect. And if you want to do that, you'd go something like this. You'd go Robinhood, agentic trading, right? Or you might search Robinhood MCP server, right? And if you go into here, right? It says bring your own agent, get started. What I would normally do, and right now I don't have my Robinhood account funded, and I actually do want to fund it because I'm very interested to try these new features. Um, this is what I would do. I would go copy this thing, okay? And I would tell Claude, please set up Robinhood so that I can trade with them. Here's a page describing how to do that so that we can trade directly through Claude. Okay, and that's all I really have to say. I don't have to worry about how to do this. It has instructions here. It goes, enter MCP and blah, 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 all the stuff that you got to do. In reality, I mean, just give it to Claude and just say, set this up. That's all you really have to do. And Claude will walk you through that, right? Especially if it's in Claude code. If you're in Claude, the chat version, it probably won't be able to do this for you. But if it's in Claude code, it now has control over your computer and it can edit files on your computer, which allows it to do things like this, where it can actually edit itself and add Robinhood to itself, right? So if you're wondering how the heck do I set up Robinhood with Claude, just literally just ask it. Just be like, just do that for me. As long as you're in Claude code, it will be able to do that for you automatically. And you see here, it's fetching it. It's able to figure out how to do this and set that up. Okay. So Robinhood happens to be one of those brokers that has this built in. Tradier is another broker that has this built in. We've been working with them for a long time. I was actually on stage at their event about 2 months ago. So if you want to watch some footage of me on stage at the Tradier conference, I was there like 2 months ago. Alpaca is another one that we've been working with a lot. These three brokers natively, you could just connect directly to Claude and talk to it. Okay. Now, let's say um, if you want to connect to another broker that does not support this, like for example, Schwab, then you could also do it through our website, BotSpot, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Okay, so let's see, first of all, um, yeah, so notice here, okay, so this is kind of one of the downsides of Claude. You won't have the same pushback. Like if you're doing this with Codex or if you're doing this with Cursor, they're most likely not going to give you this pushback. But Claude seems to be very much against this, right? It doesn't really want you to trade through Claude. I guess they don't want the liability, right? It's not a technical limitation. It's a hard line. I don't cross regardless of what's authorized. I don't execute trades or move money, and I don't create accounts or authenticate into financial services on someone's behalf. So Claude is like literally refusing to do this, right? So it can do this, but it chooses not to. So how do you get around that? Okay. So first of all, you could do this through Codex, which Codex is OpenAI's product or ChatGPT's product. It will allow you to do this. I know this because I use it all the time, right? Cursor, same thing. They will allow you to trade, but Claude, it's a little bit difficult, right? They like being difficult. Okay. So say you actually want to trade this, okay? This is how I would go about doing this. So this is why we built BotSpot and kind of where we shine. So if you go to botspot.trade, okay, you'll create an account and you'll click on AI agent, okay? Um, you could actually go in here. It'll automatically tell you to link a broker and all that kind of stuff. But look at how simple this is. We also have the voice control, and I'll say, buy me 10 shares of TQQQ at one of my Schwab accounts. Okay, and I'll hit go, and we'll watch BotSpot basically do this, right? It'll produce a trade, and it could actually do that for you automatically through here. So you see it's loading skills. It's going to do direct trading, and it will be able to do that for you, right? Okay, so I can't stage the order yet because oh yeah, so they require reconnection. There's actually a good thing for me to show you. So let me show you how to connect. So I'm going to go to broker connections in BotSpot under account, and then my Schwab needs to be reconnected. So I'm going to do that. Reconnect my Schwab accounts. And you see it's super simple. Log in with Schwab, right? It's an OAuth connection, same way that you like log in with Google or log in with Facebook, right? We basically do that with Schwab here. Continue, accept, continue, all the Schwab things that they want us to do. Okay, there we go. And once we have linked that, now I've linked my broker to BotSpot. And if I wanted to, I could actually get Claude or Codex or whatever. I guess Claude doesn't want to trade, but like Codex or Cursor, they would actually be able to connect directly to this. And let me show you how to do that. If you want to use another AI, right, you can do that too. We're kind of like the middleman here where we connect to Schwab and we kind of allow you to do both of those things. So if you want to connect something below, you go down here. It says MCP for agents. Okay. If you click on that, you'll see that we have instructions on how do you do this with ChatGPT, how do you do this with Claude, how do you do this with Claude Code, how do you do this with Codex, right? Gemini. And if you want to connect to any one of those AIs, you could do that here through this page. It explains to you how to do that if you want to use a different agent, right? Or you could just use our agent and it can place that trade. So you'll see here, okay, I talk to it and I'll say, okay, I've now reconnected Schwab. Yeah, please stage one of those trades for something that actually has cash in it. right? So now this AI can actually place this trade for me, right? And if you want to use a BotSpot, you can actually do a lot more with this too. You can get it to produce graphs the same way that we got it to do in TradingView. You say make me a graph of TQQQ with the 200-day moving average. We can get it to do that. We can get it to produce all sorts of graphs. We could actually get in BotSpot, we've actually made it that like AI can continuously trade for you. We're not going to get into that today. That's way more advanced. But you could get this thing to like continuously trade for you nonstop, if you wanted to. So like even if I'm not paying attention, it will know something happened. It will place those trades for me automatically. If you want to learn how to do that, we're going to teach how to do that in our classes. That's way out of scope here. Okay, but there we go. Here it produced a trade for me, 10 shares, right? It shows this account, right? And then it put the quantity in, limit, date, and all I have to do is hit login to trade, and this will actually place a trade for me. It's 8 p.m. right now, so I wouldn't place that trade. And to be honest with you, I don't really want to buy it right now, but it's that simple. I asked it to trade. Here's the trade. Boom. Done. Okay. And then again, you could automate this. You could have this stuff doing automatic research for you and trading for you automatically. And that's where the real magic of AI starts to come in. But we're not going to get there right today. It's way too much stuff to go through in one session. But that's the idea behind all this. Okay. All right. So let me see what questions you guys have here. Okay. Thanks. Okay, River's asking, I started experimenting with LumiBot plus Alpaca earlier this week, having some trouble back testing with it. Should I continue to familiarize myself with LumiBot before transitioning to BotSpot? No, I mean, I would actually do this directly through BotSpot is we've actually built it to be able to do this stuff a lot easier, right? Like one of the reasons why we made BotSpot is to like get rid of all this like stuff that you have to learn and go through. We have like skills already built in. We already make it easy to connect to your broker. So all that stuff is kind of just built into BotSpot already. And we're rolling out a new feature soon where we're allowing like AI to automatically trade for you. So I think you're going to see some pretty cool stuff with that. So yeah, I would go directly to BotSpot. I think it'd be a hell of a lot easier than just trying to do this through a different AI because BotSpot is like specifically built for this, right? If you have any trouble with it further than that, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. We work very closely with all of our clients. So if you're having any trouble, let me know and I can show you some of the cool techniques and stuff that we've been working on. Okay, and then Bruce has a question of for the TradingView connection, do we need to sign up for one of their subscriptions? No, you do not. You do not. As you saw for me, I have the free TradingView subscription. So everything that I was showing you was with the free TradingView subscription. I don't pay for them. So everything I showed you is for their free version stuff. Right? And great questions, guys. Thank you. Okay, cool. So we showed BotSpot. You can get like I don't want to get too deep into this because we're already running past time, but you can get BotSpot to create graphs for you. You can get BotSpot to create strategies for you. You can back test. There's all sorts of crazy stuff you could do with it. I'm not going to go too deep into it today, but check it out. I said we're going to give you also a gift at the end of today, and for those of you that stuck around, which you will get that gift, and you'll be able to actually get a free month of BotSpot. So I'm giving that away a bit right now. So okay, cool. All right, so we've gone through all that stuff here. We got a chance to control TradingView. We connected a broker, and then I showed you a little bit of stuff on how to do this at BotSpot. I'm definitely not doing it justice. We spent literally 2 years building this thing. When ChatGPT, the original one came out, we almost started on this immediately afterwards. So we've spent a lot of time building this thing out. You can make graphs for you. You can get it to research all sorts of stuff for you. You get it to place trades for you. You can make it build trading strategies for you, back test. There's a lot of really interesting stuff we could do with it. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but that was BotSpot. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's basically the whole workflow. So we went through the workflow today. That's your challenge. So your challenge over the next week is to do this, right? So you saw me install the Claude app. You saw me research it like a hedge fund would and produce a report. You saw me give it control of Chrome, right? You saw control TradingView and other websites as well. You saw me connect a broker, and then you saw me do it all with BotSpot and actually place the trade. Or actually, I didn't place the trade, but you saw the button to place the trade. You just have to hit accept. And that's basically the whole workflow. Okay, so that is your challenge over next week. I want to see who can actually accomplish this over the next week. Okay. Now, let me tell you a little bit about if you want to take this to next level. Okay, so if you guys want to go to the next level, I showed you guys a little sample of kind of the stuff that we do regularly, but we go way further than this in our AI bootcamp. If you guys are interested in this sort of thing and you want to get really, really, really freaking good at this stuff, our AI bootcamp is the way to go. And you can go to this through our website. If you go to botspot.trade again, and you go under Education AI Bootcamp, right? There's our AI Bootcamp. This is basically the thing coming up here, right? I have all the dates and all the details about it. We actually have this little dude down here that you could talk to as well. There's a pretty damn smart AI that you could speak to that is actually quite good at answering questions and stuff. Let's see if it's not doing the shout outs anymore like it used to, so we'll have to fix that. But it's very smart. If you have any questions about things, you can like ask it about all sorts of stuff about BotSpot, or about the course in general. It's very, very smart at answering your questions. So if you have any questions, talk to one of those things. I promise you, it's not a dumb AI like a lot of ones that you've probably noticed on websites. But let me tell you about the boot camp, okay? So here's it's basically a 5 week long class that we're going to be running. It's going to start on October 14th, okay? And basically, it's 5 weeks. We do this live together, and you're going to go through basically what we went through today, but in way more detail and getting way, way better at this stuff, okay? So week one is kind of similar to what we did today. You're going to set up your tools, place your first trade. We're going to get deeper into it, but that's kind of what week one is going to look like. Week two, we're going to show you how to research stocks with AI and build market scanners. You're gonna show how to do like we're going to show you how to do like very, very advanced levels of research type of stuff, how to scan for things, and like there's a lot of details that we go into there. Week three, we're going to cover options, crypto, and prediction markets. So we're going to be using Polymarket if you want to trade through there. I know Polymarket has become quite popular. But then also things like option trades are very, very good with AI. Options are really common. Even people that I know that are good with options, they could still use AI to make their lives easier. So AI is really good with options. Crypto, it's very good at because it could run 24 hours and it could be very fast. And prediction markets, I mean, this is all over Twitter, like nonstop. People are talking about this, and I think for good reason. Then week four, we're going to show you how to build a Python strategy that runs by itself automatically. So you could give it some set of rules, and it will automatically execute those rules even when you're asleep or whatever. And we'll show you how to do back testing and all that kind of stuff as well. And then week five is this is like the magic. We're going to show you some really crazy stuff in week five. This is cutting edge research that we've been doing and that a lot of other companies have been working on is making an AI agent that actually trades for you. So you could basically give it like instructions in English to say, hey, read the news and check out what's going on. And it could like automatically trade for you. And let me show you, for example, one bot that I have running like that. Here's one of mine. We'll go into, keep this open. Let me show you one of my, where is it? Bots. There it is. So here's a bot that we created, for example, that basically mimics what Ray Dalio would do. So it's Ray Dalio's idea meritocracy. So we built something like this, LumiBot. Show you guys really quickly what it looks like. Where is this? Ray Dalio. Okay, so it looks something like this. This is kind of what this AI is doing automatically on a daily basis. Okay, it has three different agents, right? Three different thinkers, right? And one of them goes off and researches growth. Another one researches inflation, and another one looks at debt and liquidity. And they all go off and do their own research, and then they all argue with each other about what's the best thing to be doing right now. And that's through this thoughtful disagreement agent here that's basically taking all those things together and saying, okay, well, you're wrong here, you're right here, and kind of coming up with a good decision. And then it actually has a trader, and the AI is actually placing trades automatically. This is happening every day automatically. Right? It's looking through the news, it's looking through, current debt levels, it's looking through all that kind of stuff. And here's what it's been producing. So here is this is without any leverage. Okay, and I'll show you the one with leverage. Actually, I don't know which one is. Let's see, this one is. Yeah, this is with no leverage. We've been running this one. I started it on July 28th, right? So about a month, and it's already beating the stock market by a healthy amount here without using any leverage, without doing any crazy stuff. You can see a stock market's been going up and down, doing some crazy stuff, whereas this agent is basically just nice and steady, just heading up, right? And this is AI trading for me automatically, right? This is, I didn't even tell it like what to do here. I just said, your idea, you have to argue your ideas and then figure out what you buy. And we just said you have to buy three things at a time. It currently owns four, DBC, GLD, SHV, and SPY. So it decided to buy these things by itself, right? We could literally talk to it and we could actually ask it, why did you buy these things, right? And again, I'm not going to get too deep into it right now, but that is literally something that you can do. You could literally ask this agent, why are you trading this? Why are you buying this? You can get this thing to do some very, very advanced type of stuff. All right. So we're going to teach you basically how to do that sort of thing, right? So that's what this AI bootcamp is about. You're going to start off with connecting your AI, learning how to do kind of stuff that we did today. Then you're going to learn how to do some really advanced research with AI. We're going to get way deeper than what we did today. Then we're going to talk about other things like options, crypto, and prediction markets and how to trade those. Then we're going to talk about how to make a Python strategy that trades by itself. And a Python strategy is like very rigid instructions. That's like if this, then this, if this, then this. So you could, if you have some specific trading strategy in mind, you could automate that for you. And then week five, we're going to show you how to do this crazy cool magical stuff where the AI can just like think on its own and trade on its own. And we're actually finding that even like complex strategies are really good. Like for example, people that trade like iron condors, like you could just tell the AI agent, buy me an iron condor with a 50 delta, and it just like does that, right? Or if you're someone who trades like prediction markets, you could like tell it, hey, look for a time when this baseball player gets injured and then buy this thing on the prediction markets. You can like have these AIs do this stuff for you automatically. It is like wild what they can do. Right, so we're going to show you that. This is our AI bootcamp. This is the 5 week class that we're going to go through in the bootcamp. And basically, you're going to walk away with basically a mastery of Claude, Codex, and Cursor. You're going to get very, very good with AI tools. You're going to have a much sharper understanding of investing and trading. I'm going to tell you all the stuff that I learned through my master's degree and working on Wall Street for a number of years. I'll try to give as much of that information to you as I can through this class. You're also going to learn how to build a trading strategy uh, that you'll back test and see, is this a good idea? So you can actually like look through is it a good idea to be buying this thing constantly? You can do that. You're going to learn how to build an AI agent that trades for you automatically. And then not only are you going to learn this for trading, but these are also skills, by the way, that are extremely marketable in the job market right now. If you bring this stuff to work, if you go through our course, I guarantee you not only are you going to get better at investing, but you're going to get a hell of a lot better at AI, and you're going to be able to do this sort of stuff where literally the most in-demand skill in the world right now is an AI engineer. It's LinkedIn's number one fastest growing job in the United States for 2026. Job postings are up 143% just this year alone, right? So not only are you going to learn this very valuable skill of learning how to use AI to invest and trade, but this is something that I think will also be very, very helpful for you in your job and your career as well, right? You're going to learn how to work with Claude, Codex, and Cursor. You're going to build AI agents that run on their own. You're going to connect them to your browser, your data, anything that you're doing, and then you could use it on your own in your investing, and then you could also take it to work. If you run a business, we'll show you how to actually, because you're able to do this browser control stuff, and because you're able to build your own strategies, that translates directly to be able to like do like marketing stuff and like communications. Like there's all these like really interesting things that you can do once you've learned these skills. All right. Okay, so here's everything that you're going to get in the AI bootcamp. So first of all, you're going to get the 5 week live class. Typically, if you look at 5 week live classes, is live over Zoom. You're going to be able to share your screens. We're going to go back and forth, right? Typically, a live class like that goes for around $5,000. So that's what the value that you'd be getting. I'm not saying that's the price. This is not our price, but that's the value that you'd be getting for a live class. Typically, is around $5,000. You'll also be getting lifetime access to every future class. So you buy it once and you can join forever going forward. We have people we started selling this AI bootcamp earlier this year, and we have people retaking it all the time because AI is just changing so quickly that like there's always new things to learn. So we have a lot of people retaking it, and that's when you sign up, you'll get lifetime access. That's something like a $20,000 value for 1 year alone. We do this about 4 times a year. You'll get access to all of our recordings, plus all of the back catalog, all the past courses that we've done in the past, or on the AI Bootcamp, you'll get all those. We sell that for about 500 bucks, so you'll get that as part of the package. You'll also get our full algorithm library on GitHub. So as I said, we've been doing this since 2019. So we've actually built up a pretty big arsenal of like really good trading strategies, and we'll give those all to you as part of this course. You'll be able to use all of the trading strategies that we've made over the past 7 years. Some of them do some pretty crazy stuff and have some really good returns. So you'll be able to use those. You'll get those from GitHub. Right. You also get the weekly live algo building sessions. This is something that we do every Tuesday. People basically join every Tuesday and we build trading strategies together as a group every Tuesday. This class is on Wednesday nights. Then you also get Tuesday night classes in perpetuity if that's what you want. Okay, and then you will also get 4 hours one-on-one time with me. So a lot of times people will use this. I'll help you personally get set up with a lot of things. If you want to build a certain strategy, we could actually build that for you on a call. We've done that a lot of times with people that have some complex strategies that they want to build out or some interesting ideas. We can help you research that. We can help you build out advanced trading strategies. Okay, and then you'll also be part of our trading competition, which takes place over the 5 weeks of this class. The class goes for 5 weeks long, and we actually have a trading competition during that class, and the winner gets 500 bucks. Right? So from day one, you'll get everything set up. You could use real money if you want, but paper trading is kind of the default. And then you'll be trading over that 5 week period. Whoever makes the most amount of money gets a $500 prize at the end of the class. All right. So if you count that all together, 5 week live class, usually around 5 grand. You get lifetime access, usually around 20 grand. This just literally for a year, right? That's a year of lifetime access because we do it about 4 times a year. Then you get all the recordings, which we usually sell for 500 bucks. You got our full algorithm library on GitHub. We're saying that's $1,000 value. I think it's worth actually a lot more than that if you put it to work with some real money. You also get the weekly live algo building sessions. That's about $1,000 if you were to buy our annual plan. You also get 4 hours one-on-one with me. I charge 250 bucks an hour, so you get $1,000 value there. And then you also get a chance to join our trading competition, which during the class, like I said, if you win this thing, you get 500 bucks. So that's a $500 value. So in total, if you sign up to our AI Bootcamp, you're getting a total of about $28,991 in value, right? If you sign up to our AI Bootcamp. But we are not going to charge you that, right? That is a lot of money. I'm not going to charge you $28,000. I'm going to charge you a heck of a lot more, a heck of a lot less than that. Okay, and right now, it is going for 1,400 bucks. That is our early bird. Prices, so this starts on October 14th. The actual class itself starts on October 14th, and then the price goes up on September 15th. So it is August 26th. So in about 2.5 weeks, this price goes up. So right now it's $1,497. There are payment plans. If you want to pay over 3 months or 5 months, we have payment plans. If you go to the AI Bootcamp page, which is right here, here's our AI Bootcamp page. If you scroll down, you'll see that there are payment plans that you could be a part of. Right. So here's testimonials. If you guys want to go through that, there's tons of stuff on this page. But here it is. You could pay in full. You could pay over 3 months, 597 a month, or 5 months, 397 per month. So you don't have to pay it all up front if you don't want to. All right. And just in case you're wondering, we also do have a 30-day money back guarantee. If whatever reason, I don't care what the reason is, and honestly, like I think we've had one person ask for this over our 7 year time period. I think they had like some financial difficulties. People don't usually want their money back, so I don't care. I'll give you even a longer guarantee. We've had some very, very satisfied people going through our courses. I think the skills that you're going to learn from this are going to be things that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life, help you do better with money, help you do better with your career. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. But just in case, we do have that 30-day money back guarantee. No questions asked. You could tell me you want your money back because you don't like, the color of your shirt or something. I don't care, right? Whatever. 30-day money back guarantee no matter what. Okay. And then we have a coupon code for you as well. So as I mentioned, there's a free prize. Where the heck did that coupon code go? Let me get that coupon code for you because the slides did not get updated like I expected. Where is this? Okay, there it is. So it's free month, August 26th. So let me type that out somewhere here. I'm going to put this into YouTube. Free month, August 26th. There's the coupon code. Let me zoom in on that so you guys can see it. This will give you a free month on BotSpot if you sign up by 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. So that's about an hour and a half that you have. Why is this not letting me zoom? Yeah, free month, August 26th, right? So FREEMONTH AUG 26. When you go to BotSpot, you sign up there, type in this coupon code, you're going to get the starter plan, which is our not our cheapest one, it's the second cheapest one. You're going to get a free month for that, which is worth about 50 to $100. Right now we have it on sale. But normally it's $100 a month, right? So you're going to get a free month and you guys can actually try out BotSpot as well. It's our software that we help out with. It's still something that we're developing over time. Really, our courses is kind of like the thing. We'll teach you how to use Claude and all those other kind of tools. But BotSpot is definitely something that is something that we've put a lot of time and effort into. So I think you'll find it very helpful to trade with a lot of stuff through BotSpot. So if you want that free month, August 26th is the coupon code. Just type that in BotSpot when you check out, and you'll get the 1 month of starter plan for free. Okay. There you go, code coming at the end, and we got that in there. Okay. Let me also answer some questions here. You're saying River says, is BotSpot free during the 5 week course? Yeah, we usually give it for free during the 5 week course. Yeah. But the thing is that you don't have to use BotSpot for the course, right? So the core, like we want to make sure that I don't want to be forcing people to use certain AI tools, right? So when we go through the course, you'll be able to use Cursor, you'll be able to use Claude, you'll be able to use Codex. We're going to talk about how to use all of those, right? BotSpot is not mandatory, right? So the course is about teaching you how to use AI to trade and that sort of thing. And I do think BotSpot is a great tool for that. We keep improving it over time. But that is not required for the course. So we will give it to you for free for the 5 weeks. But it is not a requirement for going through this, right? And you get that free month right now, so you can play around with it too. Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to be doing next week. This is a 7 day challenge, so we're going to be meeting again next week. So if you guys want to join us next week on Wednesday, what we're going to be doing is a show and tell. So if you guys join us next week, you'll be able to show us, this is the stuff that we traded, this is the research that we did. So we're going to do a little show and tell. I'm always very curious to see what people research and what you guys are up to. I think it'll be very fun for you guys to see each other's what you've been doing and what were you able to accomplish and all that kind of stuff. Then also this will be a platform. If you're stuck, you could share your screen and we'll fix it for you live. For those of you that are on YouTube, you would have to join us on Zoom in order to do that. So make sure you're on our mailing list. Make sure you join us from Zoom because then you could share your screen. And if you have any issues, we could actually help you live, right? Which is a lot like how our AI bootcamp is. We do a lot of back and forth like that. And then just as a question, next week I can also do another demo showing you some other cool stuff that we could use with AI. What would you like to see? What would you be interested in seeing? Right? Today I showed you guys a demo of how to install Claude, how to connect it to Chrome, how to connect TradingView, how to use it to do different things in TradingView. I showed you a little bit of stuff in BotSpot. What would you guys like to see next week? Right? So we're gonna meet next week. If you guys want to do show and tell, we could do that. If you have any problems, you could share your screens and we could do that. But then also, I'm going to have a chance to demo some more stuff to you. What would you guys like to know how to do with AI, right? Whether it's related to trading or not. I mean, I could show you some pretty cool stuff. AI is something that we live and breathe. We run an AI company. It's kind of a funny story. My wife one time said, you talk to AI more than you talk to me. And I laughed at her and said, no, I talk to AI like 10 times more than I talk to you. So for me, my life really revolves around AI. So I could show you guys a lot of really cool stuff. So let me know, what would you guys want to see in a demo next week? So when we get together next week, what would you want me to show you how to do or show a demo of? All right, please feel free to type that into the comments or whatever. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say there. All right. Okay, and yeah, let's open this up. So please ask me anything. What questions do you have? Do you have any questions around anything that we covered today? Is there anything that I can help you guys out with? Anything that you guys are struggling with? Any things that you want to learn how to do with AI? Let me know. Ask me those questions. I'm going to open it up to you guys now. And then also before you go, just keep in mind that that coupon code expires at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. So if you want to get that free 1 month with BotSpot, that code expires in an hour and a half from right now. If you want to go see the boot camp, this is where you'd go to. You'd go to botspot.trade/courses/AI trading bootcamp. That is the page for it. Okay. And then, as a reminder, we're meeting again next week. We're going to do the wrap up at the same time, same bat channel, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be saying that through through your emails, and we're going to be saying that through text messages if you're subscribed to that. And again, we're going to go over all those things. We're going to go over a nice show and tell. We're going to answer your questions or help you with anything that you're stuck on if you got stuck anywhere. And I'll be able to demo to you some more stuff that we're able to do with AI. And I'm still trying to decide what to show you guys next week. So that's why I'm asking you guys for ideas of what you'd want to see. Let me know what you want to see next week. Okay? So I'll leave that open to you. I'll give you guys some time to type out your questions because I know that can take a bit of time. Let's see what you guys wrote here. Bruce said, create a dashboard to track some of your stocks that we want to follow or own. We could absolutely do that. That actually almost made this session about that. I decided to do TradingView instead because when we did a bit of research, that just seems to be what more people wanted, right? Like the videos, like there's like YouTube videos about how to connect TradingView to Claude, and they're getting like tons of views. So I figured that's probably what people would want to see. But if you want to learn how to build a dashboard, absolutely we can do that. That is definitely something we could do next week for sure. Um, and River says, okay, there's so much, I don't even know where to start. I'm excited to learn everything you have to offer. I couldn't agree with you more. It's funny, like people say they learn how to use AI and they learn Claude. And then like once you start like doing it, it's just like this giant wide open thing of all these different things that you could do. And it's moving so quickly, right? Like things that were impossible a year ago. Like literally what I was showing you today was impossible a year ago. You would not be able to do this. You would not be able to connect to brokers. You would not be able to place trades like that. This literally was not possible a year ago, right? And see where we are today. And then, in a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, like what we're hoping to turn BotSpot into is like a Jarvis for trading, right? That's kind of where we're going. That's why we're doing voice control and all those kind of things. So, where I envision our BotSpot platform gets to is like Iron Man. You sit in front of a computer and you say like, show me indicators for this, show me indicators for that, trade this, place that trade, and tell me about the news. And it could just like open up windows or like imagine having like five browsers or five like monitors that could show you all the stuff. Like that's kind of where we want to get it to. So until we get to that spot, I'm gonna feel like we're still growing so quickly and there's so many things to do. So yeah, I totally agree with you, River. There's a lot. There's definitely a lot to cover. I fully agree with that. And you said thanks. See you next week. Awesome. Yeah, I will see you next week. Bruce says thanks for the session. I learned a lot. Can't wait until next week. I agree. Awesome. Yeah, so maybe next week we'll show you guys how to build that dashboard, right? That seems to be the prevailing comment here. So I'll take a note of that, and then next week I'll show you guys how to build a dashboard with AI. And then if you, again, this is a 1 week challenge, right? So I challenge you to go off and actually do the research I did today, connect Claude, connect it to your browser, and then connect it with TradingView and all that. That is my challenge to you to see what you guys can accomplish over the next week. And then we'll meet again next week. Hopefully, you guys will have some stuff to show. We'll do a little bit of a show and tell. If you got stuck anywhere, you'll be able to share your screens and do that too. And then I'll show you guys how to build this dashboard next week as well. Awesome. And thanks, FL Beach Bean. I appreciate that. Very compelling offer and great presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Awesome. Great, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. If you guys are not on our mailing list yet, make sure you subscribe. You can basically do that anywhere on BotSpot. Just type in your email address wherever you go on BotSpot or just sign up. You could use that free month, right? Like I said, free month with that coupon code. That'll get you on our mailing list, and we'll automatically be sending this out to everybody, the recordings and the invites and everything for next week. All right. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you have a great night.